Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Speaking Sessions podcast. I've got Michael Burns here. He's a self-development junkie, everything real estate, freedom, lifestyle experience podcaster, and that's the name of his podcast. And he's a speaker. He'll tell you that he's an up-and-coming speaker. And man, he is on the verge of exploding there. He's been getting on a lot of stages. So really excited to talk to Michael today about his speaking career, even though maybe at the beginnings, he's still done a lot with that and really dissect what that looks like for him to help you be able to get on stages yourself. So, Michael, welcome to the show, man. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
What's up? What's going on, dude? I appreciate you having me on the show. And it's funny to be introduced as a speaker. I would say I'm more of a business real estate guy. Um, but quick overview of me. I'm out of Salt Lake City, 35 years old, recently divorced. So I guess I'm single these days. I got a golden doodle dog named Benz. But yeah, dude, I work a lot. I'm real serious about business. Lifestyle is my brand, So you mentioned my podcast is Freedom Lifestyle Experience. Lifestyle Realty is our real estate company. Lifestyle Lending is the mortgage company that I do loans through. And lifestyle is just kind of my message, And I think that, especially in the business world, everyone's caught up on, the money, and we want the money and we want the relationships, but really we want the money and the deals and all that stuff. But really, like, it's freedom that we're looking for, and it's a lifestyle that we're looking to build. So, it's not really necessarily about the things, but it's about like the freedom and the lifestyle that they're going to afford us. And that's really kind of my approach to life and business. So we flip, I'm a real estate investor. I did my first real estate deal in 2012. I flipped 30 to 40 homes a year pretty consistently since then. Like I said, do mortgages. We got the real estate brokerage. We've got a 58 unit rental portfolio. I lend some hard money on other investment deals. And then now we're taking the money that I'm making in real estate and putting it into other cash flowing investments. So buying equity pieces in businesses, cryptocurrency, lending hard money, different stuff like that. So that's kind of an overview. And then this last year or so, I've just been having this calling to, share my message and lead by example. So I guess I'm a speaker now a little bit too. So I was just looking at it. So I'll probably speak at 10 events this year in 2022. And I'm not really, it's new to me. I think I spoke for the first time probably 2 years ago, just at a local RIA, Real Estate Investor Association group, talking about flipping houses. And then through my social media efforts, things have just kind of kept snowballing, and I'm getting asked to speak. So I'm going to be in Knoxville next month, speaking to like 70 to 100 real estate and business people. So it's kind of a overview of me and what I got going and what I'm doing.
Man, that's awesome. That's incredible too, to have 10 stages when you're just getting started with speaking and everything. We're definitely going to dive into that here in a second, but I want to ask the first question I ask every guest. How did you get over that fear of public speaking?
I'm not over the fear of public speaking. I started getting nervous a couple of days out. Like I said, I just got invited to speak to this group in Knoxville in November. And I actually was going to be at the Arte event in Nashville, which is on the 5th. And this event just kind of happened to be on the 8th, which is an hour and a half away. I've never even been to Nashville, Knoxville once. So I'll talk about the spirituality piece, but like just that alone and the timing and how it worked out. So I'm just doing it, man. So I'm not really over it, but I think that every time you get the reps in, you get a little bit more comfortable. But the bottom line is like the only way through it, like to get over it, is to go through it, So I find myself getting a little less nervous each time, and talking not quite as fast that first few minutes when you get up there, and then you kind of settle in. But for me, just understanding that, why am I doing this? So like, yeah, I'm nervous and I'm super scared, and what are people going to think? And am I going to sound dumb? Am I going to forget my points? And all of that's going to run through your head. But at the end of the day, it's like, why am I up here doing this? And if that reason is bigger than, the insecurity of being nervous about it, like if you can't get clear on that, then maybe you need to revisit that. So it's kind of got to face your fear.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. Yeah, having that why behind it and really thinking about your audience versus yourself. I like that a lot. And I just want to point this out that, not to toot your horn or anything, but you're fairly successful and you're still nervous to go speak in front of people. So for those of you that maybe aren't as successful as Michael, you still have the same nerves. It doesn't matter where you're at and it's the success ladder. You can still have nerves, but just really having that why behind the reason why that you're speaking is an important thing to help you get over that fear. So I appreciate you sharing that. Now let's dive into that spirituality where you went down this spiritual journey to help you, or that ended up getting to where you want to get on stages, or what does that look like, that spiritual journey that got you to where like you're like, hey, I'm going to start speaking to people and help them out?
Yeah, dude, I didn't wake up and say I want to public speak, or I want to do social media, or I want to have a podcast. Like that wasn't a thing for me. And that's probably why there's that uncomfort too of doing the speaking. But no, dude, like the last 3.5 years, I've just been going down a spiritual journey. I'm not talking God and religions and different, all of that. I'm just, for me, spirituality is getting in touch with yourself and whatever your purpose is, and whatever, if you want to call it God, universe, energy, Buddha, your guy in the sky, whatever. I don't really care about that, but really having the relationship with myself, and accept, and we all hear things, right? Like we have these intuitions, and we have these instincts, and we have these things that come in that are more than a thought. And the more that I've just worked on myself and getting in touch with who I am and what I want and what am I about. And a lot of this came through all of the stuff with COVID. I took a pretty hard stand on how I felt about that. And through that, I found my voice. And then as I've just been doing my meditating, different plant medicine ceremonies, like just, working with a life coach, having a spiritual coach, doing all that stuff, as I have these meditations and I'm part of these different plant medicine ceremonies that I've done, it's just kept coming and getting louder and louder and louder, is like lead by example, lead by example, lead by example, create the space, and it just wouldn't go away. So as I leaned into that and started, okay, well, I'll start having meetups at my office, create the space for people to come plug in, and just trying to show up as a guy leading by example, and trying to create the space for who I was always looking for, especially when I was coming up and I was earlier in life and business. I was always looking for that mentor or that friend or that guy locally that's, further down the road than me. I was looking for the place to go and plug in and connect and have that environment. Because if you follow me, everything I talk about, a lot of it is about environment. The environment's huge. So it just kept coming and coming and coming. So the more that I put myself out there sharing my thoughts and opinions, and the more I started having these meetups at my office and just literally putting myself out there, the more that God and the universe started to escalate that along, and opportunities started coming up, So I just was hearing that and said, okay, I'll do it. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, will you speak at this event? Hey, this mastermind's coming up. Would you speak at my mastermind? Oh, will you, we're having our annual conference at the Utah Real Estate Investors Association. We'd love to have you speak. And like shit just started happening. I got asked to speak at this thing in November next month, just from social media, people that met me in an event or somehow followed me on social media. And it's like, hey, would you come talk to our group of 70 to 100 real estate people and business owners? So, yeah, I'll do it. And the other thing is as opportunities have come up, I've just made this deal with myself that I say yes. Doesn't matter what it is. I don't care if I'm talking about ice cream sandwiches to sixth graders, or if I'm talking about $1 million real estate deals to extremely successful business people, or anything in between. Like I've just am saying yes to any and all opportunities, because it's giving me the reps and the practice and the comfort. So we talk about, how do you get comfortable public speaking? Like, how do you get better at that? Well, it's by doing it. So any opportunity that I have, like to be on a podcast with you. So the more that I've said yes, and the more that I've put my intention out there of like, hey, this is part of my purpose and what I'm supposed to be doing, and bringing value and sharing everything that I've done. Like I've got 15 years of business experience, and I've spent hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars on mindset and coaching and Arete Syndicate and all these Mark Evans, all my different masterminds and events and shit. So it's like, nah, just share all this information that I have. And the more that I lean into that and do that, the more the opportunities literally just pop up. So I haven't really been outbound like, hey, I'm Mike Burns, I'm a speaker, hire me to come talk at your. I'm not even to that point yet. I'm just kind of rolling with what I feel the universe has been asking me to do.
Nice, man. There's so many things to unpack there. I want to kind of go back to where you were at in the mill, where you talked about you started off with creating your own event at your office. So tell me about that. How was that first meetup? Was it just hundreds of people or two people, or what did that look like?
Dude, it was scary, bro, because and you're putting yourself out there, and anytime you're speaking or you're hosting a meetup, you're basically saying, hey, I'm the expert here. Like, I'm the dude in front of the room. And that was part of the reason why I was like, okay, I'll have this meetup at my office, because it's creating a space for people to come to. But at the end of the day, I'm the guy up front organizing it, and it puts you in a place of influence and being the expert, the guy that's running the room. And there's, you know, like, you're going to be a little nervous with that, because it's like, oh, who, you know, you start thinking, who am I to think that I can do this, or are people even going to care? So going into it, because I had, and here's another thing, huge tip. Like, I had been hearing this thing for like 3 years, like, start doing this, start a podcast, like, do more of the stuff. And I would like listen to it and I'd hear it, but then I'd be a bitch on like the amount of action that I took. I'd like do a post, or I'd, you know, paid to do a podcast, but didn't actually start recording them and stuff like that. So when I was doing this event, like, I was literally just sitting here in my office. This isn't my office. I'm at a title company. We just closed the deal. But I was just sick of my own bullshit, literally, like, sick of fucking thinking about it, sick of talking about it. And I just took my phone up and I was like, boom, hey, it's Mike with Lifestyle Companies. Like, we're going to have a meetup at our office next week on this day at this time. We'd love to see you there. We're going to talk about just real estate and networking and business, and just creating a positive environment for people to come plug into. Boom. And I sent it. And that's what got everything started. So I was thinking, hopefully we'll have 15, 20 people show up, and I had 43 people come to the first one on a Tuesday night with like a week's notice. And all I did was a Facebook post. So again, like, that was for me confirmation of like, all right, I'm hearing you want me to do this thing. I take action on it, and then boom, people showed up. And that's just kind of how it's continued to go for me.
Man, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Doing an event can be very scary, but so how many of those events did you do, those meetups at your own place, before you finally got asked to be on that first stage?
We were trying to do them monthly, and I had spoke on stage before I did that, but it was more like, people in Utah know me as a real estate investor. I do quite a few deals. So it was more like, hey, come talk about what you do as real estate speaking. So I had spoke before, but the more that I talk about real estate, but also incorporate this lifestyle message that I have, and then obviously I think the social media effort, and when you're in a position on a podcast and sharing that and showing that and speaking and sharing and showing that you're speaking and people are seeing you do it, then that's when people start to see like, oh, it's on their radar, like, oh, this guy will talk, you know. But I don't think I really started speaking until earlier this year. I would say last November was probably my first time I got asked to speak, when it was an effort of actually like trying to put myself out there, like listen to what I have to say. So November, so just a little short of a year. And then yeah, so it's probably with the thing in November, I'll have spoke 10 times this year.
Okay.
From November last year, when I first got to, so pretty much November to November. So in a year, it's about 10 different events.
Yeah, man, almost once a month. That's pretty awesome. And have you been paid to speak on any of these stages, or it's been kind of
No,
more
dude, I
maybe paid
haven't
for
been paid.
travel?
I've had, yeah, travel and hotel and all expenses covered, but I haven't been paid. But that's another thing too, when you talk about being, you know, the discomfort, it's like, at the same time, I haven't asked to be paid either. So, you know, like, at what point do I, and I think for me, I'll start asking when I feel like I come in and I drop a shitload of value from the stage and I see the response that I want, then I'll start asking to be paid for it. But I don't feel that I'm there yet. So I'm just, like I said, I'll speak to any group, any size, about anything, anytime, just to get the practice and the reps and the exposure.
There we go. For those of you that are looking for a real estate, I'll call you mogul just to say it, but a guy that's really knowledgeable of real estate or lifestyle, have him come out and talk. He's going to be for free, right? And he definitely wants those reps in, but especially the real estate, I think you could start charging for that lifestyle. You know, maybe you need to wait a little bit. I mean, really, you probably could even just charge for that now, but definitely the real estate. I mean, you have a phenomenal background in that. There's no reason why you aren't charging for that besides yourself. So I would suggest, if you're going to start speaking more, especially on real estate, definitely start asking for money on it, man. not
Yeah.
unreasonable to ask for that. But it all comes down to what you want to do. Or you want to be able to sell from stage, which I don't think that's your style, or you want to just make money from speaking, or is it kind of you get leads in a way on the back end, and that's where you end up making your money from that versus upfront on the speaker fee. So it just depends
Yeah,
on
dude.
you.
Yeah, and what's cool about it for me is the speaking thing and the podcast and doing this is, like I said, it's really purpose driven, and it's kind of turned into a passion thing and something that I just feel called to do. I make money in my businesses, so if
Yeah.
I start getting paid to speak, that's awesome. And I would love to see that happen. I'm sure it will happen, but I'm not speaking for the money, because
Yeah.
I have real businesses that I make money in. So I think that maybe makes it a little bit different approach for me, because it's not something that I'm trying to make a business out of, even though maybe it turns into that. We'll see.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I mean it makes sense, man. I'm just saying if you really wanted to, you
Oh yeah.
definitely could, because you obviously have the background, and it's not like you're just, hey, I'm gonna be a speaker and I'm gonna speak on this subject and I'll act like I'm the expert. So you're actually the expert in that, or so you could definitely charge on it if you wanted to. But either way, I mean, everything is up to us what we decide we want to do there. But I just wanted to throw in that 2 cents there.
No, that's
But
awesome. I appreciate it. And you're
yeah,
probably,
of course, man. Of course. Now you mentioned about social media posting. So you obviously post on social media. You've got the podcast. Is there any other platforms that you post on, or have you written a book or do YouTube, anything like that?
no. So I've got Instagram and Facebook that I'm on pretty regularly, and I'm definitely doing posts there multiple times a week. Like, I'd like to say every day, but it's not every day. I'm doing
Mm,
stories and shit like that every day too.
mm,
Um, and then I've got the podcast. I think we have 19 episodes of the podcast out. And when I started, it was audio only. So I just
mm.
contracted with a company here in Utah that'll produce it. So it'll be video. So I'm going to be rolling out YouTube and all of that. But I feel like I could be doing a much better job with the content creation, because I have all of it. It's just putting it out there.
Yeah.
And I think really too, and one thing that I've learned that was really eye-opening to me, and kind of what you were talking about earlier with like speakers and like just speaking for speaking, like one, because I've been to all the events, I've seen a lot of stuff, but like when I started going to events and realizing that I was doing way more deals than the dude on stage was doing, I was like, there's something off here, this is a little different.
Mm.
So I think taking the pride in actually like being an expert at your craft and what you're speaking at is important. And I think that's gonna separate, it's a big separator. So whatever it is you're speaking about, you kind of better know what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree there. And that just more reason why you need to be out there speaking your
Yeah.
message about real estate. But going back real quick to the social media. So I know you kind of mentioned a little bit, you talk about real estate, you talk about lifestyle. Is there like, what do you kind of talk about on social media? I'm kind of steering this a little bit. It's a kind of a pointed question, because this is a lot of what I talk about with my clients, and I just want people to understand that what you post on social media matters. You can't just post random stuff if you're trying to get on stage. You got to start posting proper stuff for what you want to speak on. So do you post about the real estate, about lifestyle? Is there anything else? What does that look like as far as your posting goes?
Yeah, 100%. And I lost my train of thought. This is where I was going at earlier, but I would say if you watch my social media, you'll be like, damn, that dude's he keeps it real. He's like authentic. You can meet me on
Mm,
the street, you can see me on this podcast, you can see me speak on stage or wherever, and you're going to get the same version of me. Like, transparency is one of my core values. It's a non-negotiable. So no matter where you meet me, obviously different scenarios, you're going to show up a little differently, but that's what I was saying earlier. You have all these gurus and all these people, speakers and shit, and they're one person to the public, and then behind doors they're not living what they're they don't practice what they preach, or they're not really doing the business that they're talking about. Real estate's a prime example. You have all these guys that aren't even really doing real estate deals, but they're talking about real estate, or they're not practicing what they're preaching. So I think in the going to the social media, as people are, I look at it as who am I following and why am I following them? I
mm,
follow them because I connect with them on a core value standpoint, or they bring value to me in one of the areas of life that's important. They're, like, I get value from it. I don't follow people to follow people.
mm,
So really being intentional of like, I understand my message is for a certain person that's in a certain space in their life that's interested in doing better and building a lifestyle. So how can I show up authentically and be practicing what I'm preaching consistently that's going to speak to, I heard this the other day. It's like I'm best suited to speak and teach the person I used to be.
Mm.
So I'm trying to show up as this guy that's leading by example and sharing his journey and talking about spirituality and core values and relationships. I'm extremely pro-America. I'm not down with all this woke ass bullshit going on. And the more that I'm authentic and the more that I speak my truth and I show up, but not only am I talking about it through my stories and my social media, I'm actually living it and I'm showing myself living it, being transparent. People connect with that. That's probably like the biggest compliment that I get, or the biggest comment that I get with anyone who follows me, is they're just like, dude, you just keep it real. Like you just, like you like deals. If I lose, like, social media, everyone wants to show the Ferrari, and I have the Ferrari. They want to show the Rolexes. I got that shit too, but they don't show the losses. They don't talk about the hard times. It's just a fucking highlight reel all the time. And I talk about the losses. I show the dirty stuff. I talk about the things that aren't sexy rainbows and unicorns all the time. And that's the thing that people relate to. And that's what everyone wants, is relatability, I guess, is what's taken me 5 minutes to say. People want to be able to relate to you. And the only way they're going to be able to relate to you is if you're authentic and you're leading by example. And then when you do that, then they're going to relate to you. And that's when people are going to want to hear what you have to say. But if you're just out there, looking flashy and saying whatever you're saying, people don't relate and connect to that too. Certain people will, but like, I don't think that's sustainable, and you're not really being who you are.
Yeah, man, it's two great points that you bring up there. One, speaking to who you used to be, that's a powerful thing, because that makes you super relatable, like you were just talking about there. That you know who you used to be and what that person could, or you being that younger person, could have used. So you're speaking to that person, which makes you super relatable to your audience. And then number two, that you are the same person online as offline. We see too many ungenuine conversations now, or people on social media, like you said, that are one way, and then you see them off social media and they're completely different. It's like, oh man, there's a super friendly, outgoing person on social media, and then off, it's like they're super standoffish. You're just like, what in the world? So it just totally throws you off when you meet them in person. But
Yeah.
you are who you are at all times. So that's a super important thing with social media.
Well, and I think with everything being so, there's so many distractions, and you got to be loud to catch people's attention. But I see a lot of people and these gurus and influencers that present themselves one way, but then you're off fucking people on business deals, or you're cheating on your wife, or you're not being, you're doing shady deals, and you're not coming from a place of integrity, or you're not
Hmm.
practicing what you're preaching. I see a lot of that, and I take a lot of pride in trying to not be that way.
Yeah.
Um, that's my thought process on that. But it's, I don't have a huge following, but I get a lot of the same comments over and over. So that's kind of how I know that that's what people seem to vibe with and like.
Mm. Yeah, and it's not about the huge following either. I mean, and I like how you mentioned about, you're not with this woke stuff. You're super patriot and everything, and that just goes to show that being super, I don't want to say niched on that, but being like, this is who I am, and just putting all that out there, that you do retract people that aren't that. So that you do retract those woke people, but then all the patriots are people that want to be more patriotic, and maybe they're not brave enough to be super patriotic. They resonate with you, and so they're drawn to you, and you just build these super fans, if you will, versus just people are like, Michael's a cool dude, like, I guess I'll follow him. He posts some good stuff, some good content, like, but you've created this persona, which is really you. It's not like you're faking it, but this persona that is you just retracts people that aren't going to be for you, and then attracts all those people that are for you and that are the same as you.
Yeah, and the last thing I'm trying to do is make it political, man. I just think in this
Yeah.
world, being a victim is you're being rewarded to be a victim, and you're being rewarded to say, oh, poor me. And the reality is we live in America. You can do, be, and have whatever the fuck you want, and anything less than that is on you. So kind of my message is taking personal accountability for any and everything in your life, and then staying loyal to your potential. So if you're taking personal accountability for everything and you're being loyal to your potential, there's not really a whole lot there left to do. That's the way that I look at it, and really the message that I want to put out there. But there's just, the system's not designed to set up to encourage people to go do and be and have whatever they want, because then you don't fit in the box and the deal, and that's where they want you at. And I'm just saying, fuck that. There's another way, which is called lifestyle. Like, go design the life that you want, not the life that society says you should live. And I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, deep down in your soul, everybody connects with that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Everybody wants to be their own person at the end of the day, whether, whatever side that they're on, whatever they think, however they feel, they all want to be able to be respected for their individual thoughts, their individual lifestyle. So you're exactly right about that. Now, I want to ask real quick, we've kind of skated around this, but obviously all that social media content that you post and then what you speak on stage is basically the same stuff, correct? It's not like you kind of mentioned about earlier about, hey, yeah, I'll go speak about ice cream on a stage if somebody asks me.
Yeah.
But most of the time, what you post on social media is what engagements you've been asked to be a part of, correct? Or stages you've been asked to be on.
Yeah. And people, I've been successful in the real estate world. So when it comes to being an expert at my craft and good at what I do and knowing it really well, real estate's definitely the foundation of that. So, I talk a lot about real estate, but as I'm speaking about real estate, I'm showing how real estate enables my lifestyle. And I'm showing how I incorporate the spiritual piece into my life and business. I'm showing how I go to the gym every day. I take myself, eat daily disciplines. Like, I'm in the best shape I've ever been in right now in my whole life. I was fat for 35 years and it was my biggest insecurity my whole life. And I decided I'm not doing this shit anymore. And now I look great. And I've got a long way to go, but like, I'm just talking like I'm more focused on talking about lifestyle. So, you have, for me, you've got your money, your finances, your business, you have your home life, you've got your social life, your network, your sphere of influence, you have your health and fitness, you've got spirituality and self-development, and then fun or experience. So those are the 6 different pillars that I see that you have of life. And regardless of who you are, you need some of it in some capacity. Like, business is going to fulfill me more than other area, more than, having a hobby of painting or building trains or whatever. But you have to have all of that, in my opinion, to some capacity. So with my social media, I'm talking about lifestyle. I'm showing journaling at the river in the gym, at the creek, journaling. I'm showing driving the Ferrari. I'm showing, the health and fitness stuff. I'm showing, hey, I'm at 10X seminar this week. Hey, I just read this book. Speaking at this event. Here's a deal, real life deal, breakdown of the numbers. Hey, my investor just shorted himself 10 grand on a payoff. And I called him and brought it up to him, because core values and relationships matter. So I'm literally just showing my entire life and how it incorporates with all the shit that I'm talking about that has to do with lifestyle and core values and relationships, and business is just part of it. But real estate early on is definitely the hook, because I have the resume and I've got the resume and the history to be like, hey, I've done well at this. So then people want to hear me talk about real estate. But when I start talking about real estate, I'm telling them, guys, real estate is only the vehicle that you're driving. It could be real estate, it could be mortgages, it could be insurance, it could be a tire company, it could be restaurant, whatever it is, that is only the vehicle that you're driving. But if you're not working on yourself and you're not focused on these other areas, like, that's just the vehicle. But if you get in this vehicle, you get in this high-speed Ferrari vehicle of possibilities in life, and you don't know how to get up out of park, it doesn't really matter. And that's my approach. Does that answer?
Yeah. No, that definitely answers. I appreciate you answering that and explaining, going into a lot of detail on that as well. So for those of you that maybe haven't been posting on social media, you need to start posting on social media. That's going to be a big part for you to be able to get on stage, unless you or a CEO of a company. I mean, like, let's say a BMW or Mercedes or Apple, you might get on stage easily, even though you didn't post on Facebook. But if you're,
where's anyone going to see you, dude?
Yeah,
Any
exactly.
person listening to this podcast right now, if you pull out your phone and you track how long you were on Facebook or Instagram, I will literally give anyone $100 who has less than an hour on there. hit me up. I'll send you $100. That's how much time we spend on this social media thing. So if you're trying to share a message, or you're trying to share your product or your business, or you want anyone to know who you are and what you do, you have to be on social media. Like, people don't
Yeah.
listen to radio, they don't listen to TV. And if you're just trying to bootstrap it, going to like meetup after meetup, it's going to take you forever. So like social
Mhm.
media has to be part of the equation. And I remember I was at the 10X Growth Con, I forget which one. I've been to all of them, but this guy was speaking and he said, if you don't start incorporating social media into your life and your business, you're going to die.
Mm.
And when he said that, like, I had Facebook. I didn't even have Instagram. I never post. I just had it to scroll, and it just hit me right here. And I was like, well, I don't want my business to die, dude. That doesn't sound good. So I remember I had this house in downtown Salt Lake, had a cool orange door on it. And I remember I was like, hey, taking action. I got to do this. I got to start doing this social media thing. And I'm sitting there, phone shaking, my face is cracking, hey guys, this is Mike with the Burns team. I want to show you this flip we're doing. And, like, super conscious about what it sounds like. I'm literally shaking, can hear it in my voice. And I shot the video probably 6 times, but I shot the video and I uploaded it and I posted it. And then I stayed consistent with it. And that's how I started on the social media. And that's why people started knowing me as a real estate guy, because I post all these flips all the time. So then people started asking me like for help and advice flipping homes online. And then I started getting asked to speak at the local real estate investor groups about flipping houses online. And then it became, hey, talk about loans. And then it became, hey, talk about, real estate and rental properties. And then now it's like, well, hey, talk about your approach to business. So it starts as real estate, one area of real estate, and then another area of real estate, and then this area that I'm an expert in. And then it's like, oh, well, talk about your approach. Oh, okay. Well, my approach, that's not asking me to talk about real estate. That's asking me to talk about how am I doing it? And that's where my message of lifestyle came in. So now these doors are opening for me to really start talking about what I want to talk about, which is the lifestyle stuff. But my hook was the real estate because I was credible there. So you have to use whatever asset you have to gain attention, and then just stay consistent. At least that's what I've done. So
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. And that's so true. Yeah, getting that hook and getting that exposure until you can finally start talking about what it is that you want to talk about. And you should be credible on that, or living it out like you are with the lifestyle approach and everything. I do want to change gears here real quick and
okay.
talk about, I know you've been to tons of events. You've been to large events such as the growth cons, which you have like, there's 5, 10, 20,000 people at those. It's crazy. And then as small as like Tony Watley's 365 driven, where you got like 20 or 30 people. And I'm sure there's some that are smaller than that are super, super intimate. And I don't know if you've been to anything like that, but tell us just real quick. I know it's too hard to unpack all of it, but just the differences of a very small, intimate mastermind versus huge conference, and what your thoughts on them, and what you like about them. Just kind of give us the overview.
Cool. So when it comes to a mastermind or an event, so a couple things, like a mastermind and an event are 2 different things.
Mm,
In my mind, a mastermind is like Arete Syndicate, or like Mark Evans DM family, or like Lions Not Sheep that Sean Whalen runs. A mastermind is a group of people where you're in the group and it's a recurring thing. It's a community, it's a network, it's a mastermind. And then you have events like Tony's event, or you've got 10X, or you've got, my buddy Albert Preciado has Driven that he has every year in LA. So just to be clear on the difference of mastermind
mm,
versus event, I think for both of them, there's 2 pieces. There's the content that you're learning, which is super important, but then there's the relationship capital piece as well. So there's 2
mm,
things that I'm looking at, is like, what's the content and the tactile shit that I'm learning, or whatever, motivational stuff, like that's all great and that's all awesome. But it's the relationships that are actually going to move the needle in your life and your business, because the relationships are what open the doors to all sorts of opportunity. So that's the way that I look at those 2 different things, is there's 2 values, large versus small. So one thing about events that's different, the information and the content's always good, but networking at an event, in my opinion, is a little bit different depending on how large the event is or how small it is. If it's a large event that you're going to be interacting with a lot of people, so your time with people is a lot smaller. So it's a lot of like, hey, who are you? Where are you from? What do you do? And then based on what they answer, you're sifting through like, this guy doesn't have value to me. We're not in the same industry or whatever it is. So you're not building relationships there. You're more gathering contacts, and it's more like a wide net. You're throwing a huge net out there. Hopefully I can pull in a couple good contacts from this event, knowing that you're going to meet and talk to a lot of different people, but you're going to have a short period of time with them. Or you could try and engage in a longer conversation with people and maybe something happens there. But an event is a one-off thing. The thing with a mastermind that I like about a mastermind, I think masterminds cultivate relationships entirely different, because you understand, hey, we're all in this group together. So for example, Arete Syndicate, when it was the old Arete, before they kind of redid the thing, I knew that I was with this group of 110 people for the next year. We're going to be on a call every month, or no, we're going to be on a call multiple times a month. We have the Facebook group, we have each other's phone numbers, and then we're going to have 5 events throughout the year. We're going to have these 3-4-day summits and these awesome locations, and then, you know, 2 smaller events throughout the year. So if I'm sitting here talking to you, Philip, I don't feel the pressure of I need to go meet a bunch of people because I'm only here today. It's like, I'm going to be with this dude for a year. We're both invested to be part of this group for a year. We both vibe with what this group is about, and we're in alignment with the core values. So there's so much more filtering in a mastermind setting, and you also have the time to build and develop relationships. That's what I see as the biggest difference versus a one-off event. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. A great explanation there for sure. And I like the piece that you mentioned, because a lot of people, when they think about going to a conference or even a mastermind, it's all about the content. What content am I going to get out of this? They need to be educating me. And every time you go there, and what I've noticed, that if I had a little bit of that expectation, especially the first times I was going to conferences, my expectation was like, oh, this content's going to be great. It's going to be life changing. And it is good content. But what I found was, when I started networking more, that's when the differences changed. That's when the conferences were life changing for me, not the content itself, but actually the connections I made within that content. So I'm glad you brought that up as well, because that's huge. Networking is the name of the game, and I'm finally finding that out after a couple of years of being in this self-development space and everything, that yeah, the network is such a huge thing. And we always hear about your network is your net worth and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, it didn't finally start clicking until earlier this year. And lots have changed since then for me.
Dude, it's a big deal. And I mean, I've seen it in my own personal life, and continue to expand the network, but also relationships is what I'm always preaching, and going deep with your relationships that you have. But one of my mentors, Mark Evans, he calls it relationship capital.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things. I mean, mentors are a big deal, and coaches, and you know, like, just learning is a big deal. But one thing, the biggest thing that I've learned from Mark, he actually flew into Utah today, but he talks about relationship capital. But I just watch the way that he treats people, and I watch the way that, and for you guys who don't know Mark, he's a baller, flies into Utah on a private jet type baller to do what he does. But relationship capital is what he's always talking to us about in the DM fam, and just understanding the power of that. Like, dude, with my network that I've spent the last 6 years building, going to all these events, and like spending a lot of money to be in rooms where there's other people who are willing to spend a lot of money to be in that room because they understand the value of it. It's priceless to be able to pick up the phone and call someone who can help you with a contact, or that you can do a deal with, or that can introduce you to someone, or that can just give you sound advice, and be a sounding board, you know.
Mm.
And I really, really saw how big of a deal my network was when COVID hit, because I've got a lot of contacts in the real estate space, but then also guys that I met in Arete, and just who are way more seasoned and down the road. And when you can pick up the phone and call people with experience who you know and trust, and have been through where you're at, they're just further down and more seasoned, like
Mhm.
that's invaluable, dude.
Yeah.
And a lot of different situations where I've had, where being able to make that phone call has made me a ton of money, or it's prevented me from losing a ton of money, or just like genuinely not knowing what to do, and being able to reach out to these people. You're not going to find that with your high school buddies, or going to the local bar, or fucking, you know, your local park and rec, you know, football league, or whatever you're doing. Like, you're gonna get those contacts by being in the room that those places and those people are going to be hanging out. So I think that the relationship piece is actually far more valuable than the content itself.
Yeah. Oh, totally agreed there. And it's amazing ever since I've been putting myself in a lot of these rooms as well. Just the changes in my life, the changes I've been able to help other people with, and just see the transformation. And kind of going back for you, when we first met, yeah, you definitely were a more chubby guy, and you definitely slimmed down, and look real good, man. So
I
it's pretty
appreciate
awesome
that.
to see you change just physically and within business and everything. Is I know you've been doing a lot of things since we first met and everything. So it's really cool to see your transformation and everything.
Well, dude, I
But
appreciate that. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying, like everyone's watching, dude. Like people are
mhm,
watching you, whether they like your shit or whether they comment it or not. Like everybody's watching what everyone's doing. That's just a society that we have. So when
yeah,
you continue to be consistent, like you're consistent, like people are watching and they're seeing that. And then you start producing consistency and showing results. Well, now you're certified legitimate, and that's, we're talking about speaking. Like people are going to ask you to speak because they see you talk about something, they see you be consistent with it, and then they see you winning consistently. Well, it's like,
mhm,
oh, well, what is he doing? Like people want to know.
yeah. Oh,
And
yeah, for sure.
that's
Yeah, couldn't agree more. But hey, I want to get into our last question here. If there's
okay.
one message that you could share for the rest of your life, what would that message be?
Oh man, there's a lot of them. It's kind of, I've already said it earlier, but until you get sick of your own shit, or until you get sick of your limiting beliefs or your bitch voice or whatever it is it's preventing you from going and living the life that you really want to live, like until you're willing to do something about that, like nothing's ever going to change. So I call that taking personal accountability for anything and everything in your life, and then continuing to stay loyal to your potential. And there's no reason you can't. We live in America. Like you can do, be, and have whatever you want here, period. And so anything less than that's your own fault.
Huh. Staying loyal to your potential. I like that, man. I bet you say that a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
If
yeah,
not, you
man.
need to trademark that.
Yeah, but I mean, that's really the truth. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously everyone has different starts in a different space, but the reality is is what would my takeaway would be. No matter where you are, the reality is the opportunity to reach the next level. You're the only one that's standing in the way of you and reaching the next level. And whether you're starting at a lower level and some people are born into a different situation, maybe they're a little further down the road, but like progress is always an option if you make it,
Mm,
if you
mm.
take.
Man, dropping all sorts of nuggets here, especially right at the end. But Michael, man, I really appreciate this. It's been great. I feel like we could continue to go on here, but we won't go on at this point. But man, I do appreciate your time and coming on and sharing so much value with the audience.
Yeah, no, dude, I appreciate you having me on. And, the fact that I'm on your podcast, and I know you guys at the event, and we're working on, that stuff out too, but it's literally just a testament of everything you and I are talking about. We connected through an event and online, and you're
Mhm.
asking me to be here because you're watching me on social media, and I'm talking about what I'm doing it, and then I'm being successful with it, and it's just doing that. So like everything and the point that you're trying to show, and what I think we were talking about today, like this is a real life example that's real, because it's like that's what happened with you and me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're exactly right about that. So, but man, I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, absolutely, dude. So anything I can do to offer value to anyone, in the audience, please reach out to me. I'm all over the social media platforms and just here to provide value. And like I said, lead by example.
Yeah. And what's the best place for them to reach out to you?
Instagram's at michael.burns with a Z, Burnz. And then Facebook is Mr. Michael Burns. And then I got the podcast Freedom Lifestyle Experience, and talking about, all the 6 different things that I think are part of lifestyle. So,
Awesome. Awesome. Well, again, man, appreciate having you on. This has been awesome.
okay. Thanks, bro.